Hello everyone, this is part 10 of What If Naruto Had a Proper Teacher, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video and to like, to subscribe, to see more comment down below. Out on their journey to Kumo. They were not in any particular danger, however Kakashi had driven home the lesson of always being on guard. As they crossed through the land of hot water and the land of frost, the three genin were filled with anxious energy. Naruto in particularly was antsy. Ma, calm down Naruto. The real fighting won't even begin until the final round, and that will be a month from now. Naruto huffed, I know that Kakashi-sensei, that's why I'm going nuts. Sakura put a hand on Naruto's shoulder. Naruto, we are ready, there is no need to be nervous. You'll make your father proud. Naruto smiled, thanks Sakura-chan, I just want it to happen already. You think you have it bad. Do you know how long I've waited to hunt down Itachi? Naruto rubbed the back of his head with slight embarrassment. I guess 1 month isn't so bad. Sakura lightly punched Sasuke on the arm. Sasuke-kun, if you knew Itachi was waiting for you in Kumo, you know you would be bouncing off the walls with anticipation just like Naruto is. Sasuke arched an eyebrow and shrugged. Maybe so, but if I did it wouldn't be helping anyone, and Naruto isn't helping right now either, so don't encourage him. Kakashi eyed his three genin. They had grown much more comfortable with each other during the past year. It was a far cry from what they were like when he first got the team. Sasuke had been quiet and held nothing but contempt for his teammates. Sakura had been a hopeless fangirl, and Naruto had just been hopeless as a shinobi. It was comforting to see Sakura sticking up for Naruto. Now they cared for each other and worked like a well-oiled machine on and off the battlefield. He addressed his team, when we get to Kumo during the exams, use some misdirection. Sakura, I want you to avoid using Fuinjutsu and keep your Genjutsu limited to C-ranked abilities or lower. Naruto, don't use Kyuubi chakra. Sasuke, don't use your Suiton abilities and avoid using your modified Chidori techniques. For all of you, set your weight seals to about half. When Iwa comes, I want them to underestimate us. Naruto spoke up, but I thought we were also supposed to impress Kumo. You are and you will. But we don't want to give intelligence about all of your capabilities to any Iwa shinobi that will be there. Iwa always sends shinobi to the Kumo Chunin exams. Sasuke smirked, we are going against genin. It's not like we are going to need all of our abilities to beat them. Kakashi responded, that is true, but don't lower your guard. You are all technically ranked genin. Other villages may also have genin who are much stronger than their rank would suggest. Sasuke acquiesced and nodded toward his sensei. The journey continued and soon they were in the land of lightning proper. They were stopped by a Chunin patrol of Kumo shinobi. The lead shinobi commanded they halt. I suppose you must be the Konoha team that was sent to the exams. Kakashi answered, hi, this is my team. The Chunin took the scroll from Kakashi and read it over. You can pass, but if I were you I would turn around. Kakashi asked, and why is that? Because Konoha scum isn't well liked here. Kakashi was amused and responded, oh, don't worry, we aren't Konoha scum. We wouldn't dream of letting our scum represent the village in your Chunin exams. The Chunin scowled, it's a pity I have to stay at my post, it would be fun to watch your team get killed against real shinobi. Kakashi ignored the last remark and just motioned for his team to follow. When Team 7 had passed outside of earshot, one of the other Chunin approached the leader. Are you insane? You just insulted Sharingan no Kakashi to his face. The Chunin team leader swallowed thickly. He hadn't realized he was talking to an S-rank shinobi. The shaken Chunin went back to his post, glad that he never gave his name out to the masked leaf nin. Kaminari no Kuni, land of lightning, was a mountainous region with several valleys and rivers. Fog would cover some of those valleys, obscuring view for miles. Hidden in the clouds really is a good descriptor, Naruto remarked. The team agreed but remained quiet. It was time to enter Kumo. They were quickly stopped as they entered into Kumogakure proper. Once again they showed their scroll and stated their intent of joining the Chunin exams. They were given directions to a place where they could stay. Kakashi and his team sensed that they were being followed. When they arrived at their location they were greeted by a dark-skinned man whose white hair was covering one of his eyes. The other eye seemed to battle Kakashi in terms of who could look lazier. Naruto stopped and pointed. Kakashi, I think we found your cousin. Kakashi's eye twitched at his student's antics. Sakura sighed. Shut up, Naruto Barker. They aren't related. Naruto shook his head violently, but look at him. He's got that same look that Kakashi has when he wanders around town. He's got white hair. And I can tell just by looking at him he's Jonin level. Kakashi resisted the urge to stab his sensei's son with a chidori. Naruto, I do not have any family in Kumo. Darui allowed a small smile to appear on his face as he looked at the Konoha team. My name is Darui and I've been sent by the Raikage to explain a few things. Kakashi inclined his head. Let's get off of the street, Darui-san. Darui motioned for them to enter the building. The building was actually a home that had not been lived in for some time. It was clean, however, and had 4 bedrooms, so it would do. Darui spoke. The Raikage welcomes you to Kumogakur. Your new Hokage hopes for peace to continue with Kumo and at this time that aligns with our interests. But we both know that fostering friendly relations by having your team compete in the Chunin exams isn't the true reason you are here. Kakashi spread his hands innocently. What do you mean, Darui-san? Forging closer relations between villages is one of the purposes of the Chunin exams. Darui clearly didn't believe Kakashi in the slightest. I'm not here to interrogate you about your true mission, but there are some ground rules for your stay in Kumo. Team 7 listened as the Jonin explained. They were not to travel more than half a mile from their lodgings. There were suitable restaurants as well as a shinobi supply store within the accepted radius. They would be watched by 2 shinobi teams at all times and should do nothing to try to avoid them. If one of you is no longer under observation, we will take the rest into custody and begin our interrogation. We may not have a Yamanaka, but that means it will be less than pleasant. Sorry, but that's the way it has to be. Kakashi shrugged. We accept your terms, you'll have no problems with us, Darui-san. Darui turned to leave and then paused. Tomorrow we'll guide you to the Chunin exams entrance and you'll be given a spot with the other Jonin who are observing the exams. After Darui left, Sakura commented, well, aren't they a friendly bunch? Kakashi gave her an eye smile. They probably think you are my cover to assassinate someone during the exams. Naruto started to speak, but Kakashi caught his eye and gave him the hand signal to be quiet. Observes could be listening. Naruto blinked and then opened his mouth again. I'm hungry. Do you think they have a ramen stand here? Unfortunately for Naruto, they did not. Naruto had several complaints about this and swore the next time he left the village he was packing a month's supply of ramen. The team noticed the observers that were watching them. More than likely at least one of them was a censor shinobi of some sort, so they continued to avoid any conversation about the true mission. While they were at the restaurant, they spotted another team of genin. This group was from Shimogakur village hidden in frost. They were surprised to see a Konoha team there and approached. Shimogakur didn't have any rivalry with Konoha, but they chose to send their few teams to Kumo simply due to proximity. Normally they only had 1 or 2 teams to send, as their shinobi forces were several magnitudes smaller than the 5 great hidden villages. Kakashi and his team were respectful, even Naruto. The Jonin sensei of the Frost Nin was a kunoichi by the name of Yakuta. She had short, dark hair, a pretty face, and was interested in Kakashi. For some reason the mask intrigued others. Many people had gone to incredible lengths to try to see under it. Yakuta was one of those intrigued, and based on her hints she was willing to help Kakashi relax on the night before the Chunin exams, because no doubt he was stressed about how his team would do. Kakashi politely rebuffed her and took her arm and leaned in closer to whisper. Yakuta, I have a bounty on my head of over 50 million ryo. I am in a village that barely tolerates my presence. I am not about to lower my guard no matter how beautiful the distraction. Kakashi released her arm and she bowed politely. Of course, Kakashi-san, enjoy your meal. Sakura did a double take. Did she just? Kakashi nodded. Hi, Sakura. I didn't detect any ill will, but a skilled kunoichi can make herself seem harmless. I doubt she was an assassin, but I am not about to take any chances. Sakura blushed faintly. It was rather awkward thinking about Kakashi and a kunoichi in that manner. Sakura bit her lip. I know in the academy we were taught that some kunoichi used their bodies to get close to targets. I'm not going to have to do that, am I? Kakashi laughed. No you aren't. In Konoha that is strictly voluntary. Naruto found the situation rather funny, but knew laughing would cause Sakura to be rather irritated with him. Sakura replied, "That's a relief. I do feel bad though, based on what you said it sounds like kunoichi in other villages don't get the choice. Depends on the village, depends on the cage, but yes, many other villages require their shinobi to use every weapon at the disposal." Naruto finally had to say something or he would burst. Who in Konoha volunteers for those missions? Sakura gave Naruto a dark look and Kakashi gave his genin an ice smile. That would be telling Naruto and highly unprofessional of me. Sasuke smirked. Why do you want to know Dobe? I thought you wanted to be with Sakura. As Naruto hurriedly backpedaled, Kakashi watched on with amusement. After a while Kakashi cut in and said, all right, you two stop tormenting Naruto. Let's head back to our temporary home. All of you will want plenty of sleep before the exams. Break Team 7 was guided to the first exam. There they were split up and Kakashi went with the other Jonin to observe. Kakashi was curious about the Kumo exams. Suna and Konoha had similar exams, but who could say what Kumo and Iwa had been doing in the last decade? Not that Kakashi was worried. Regardless of the type of exam, his genin shouldn't have any problem. The first exam turned out to be rather mundane. It was essentially a much tougher academy test. The Chunin hopefuls had to demonstrate taijutsu and ninjutsu. They had to demonstrate proficiency with shinobi tools such as hitting targets with kunai. At the end of the barrage of simple tests was one final exam. All three genin of the team had to take down a Chunin without doing serious injury. The test highlighted restraint as well as skill. It was far easier to kill someone than take someone down with only minor injury. Needless to say, Team 7 aced all of the exams. The final test was a bit of a joke. Sasuke, impatient at not having anything remotely challenging, had simply charged forward and easily defeated the Chunin in a taijutsu duel. The last Uchiha took care not to hurt the Cloud Nin too bad and simply knocked him out. Team 7 had passed the first exam with flying colors. They did receive a few points off for not using teamwork against the Chunin, but with each of them scoring the highest possible marks in taijutsu, shinobi tools and ninjutsu, it didn't matter. The group of Jonin had been weeded out as their teams failed to pass with the required score. With less of a crowd, Kakashi was spotted by a pair of Iwa Jonin. Kakashi had memorized the bingo books just like Naruto had and knew the two of them weren't serious threats. He ignored them as they approached. What are you doing here? Kakashi pointedly ignored them, and so they came closer. One began radiating killer intent and Kakashi finally looked up. I'm here with my genin team just as you are with your genin team. The other Jonin had started to watch the potential confrontation. A Cloud Nin hurried in between the Iwa and Kakashi. There will be no fighting between Jonin Sensei or the Raikage will become involved. Kakashi merely nodded, and when the Kumo shinobi turned to gain the agreement from the Iwa pair, Kakashi gave them a little wave as he departed. There was a bit of a wait after the firm exam, and then all the genin were gathered together. Kakashi and the other Jonin were watching as the genin were given instructions. The Kumo proctor had to raise his voice so that all of the genin could be heard. Kakashi scanned the crowd. There were shinobi from Awagakur, Moegakur village hidden in the haze, Yugakur village hidden in hot water, Shimogakur village hidden in frost, Tanagakur village hidden in valleys, and of course outnumbering them all was the shinobi from Kumogakur itself. The proctor announced that the goal was to scale the mountain as quickly as possible. Each team would be spread out equidistantly around the base. The climb using the most direct route could be finished in less than 2 days. The peak of the mountain was beyond sight, covered in clouds. However, this mountain has had thousands of traps set for you. Some are as simple as poison bear traps and some as complicated as barrier fuinjutsu. As you get higher, you will have to deal with snow and avalanches are common. All the while you will be fighting against opposing genin teams. You can feel free to kill your opposition. Kakashi thought the test was interesting. In the end, it wasn't too different from the Forest of Death. The proctor continued, the first 8 teams to arrive will go on to the final round. If you fail to make it as an entire team, that is acceptable, however you will be at a severe disadvantage in the third and final test. Take your positions, you will begin in 1 hour. Kakashi silently wished his team luck and turned to follow after the other Jonin. Break The first exam was straightforward with none of the mind games they had heard about from the other rookies back in the Konoha Chunin exams. But now the real conflict would be beginning. Their leaf headbands had caused them to stand out, and while they were waiting for the proctor to begin, several teams from Iwa had started making threats. Konoha trash, you're dead on that mountain. Maybe we should have some fun with the pink-haired one first. Hell no, if she's from Konoha she's probably diseased. Sakura glared at the Iwa nin who made the last comment. The Iwa genin was a few years older and sneered at the pink-haired girl. My brother died fighting your sensei in the Third Shinobi War. I know I'm no match for him yet, but I'll happily kill you and make him know my pain. Sasuke yawned, words are words, shut up and face us on the mountain. Before the argument could continue, the proctor began explaining the rules. After he was done, Team 7 was taken to their starting position. It was a bit of a walk as there were a lot of teams still in the exam. When they finally reached it, they had about 10 minutes to plan before the exam would begin. Naruto spoke up first. I say we teach those Iwa teams a lesson. No one talks to Sakura-chan that way. Sakura felt a little thrill of contentment spark within her. She didn't really care about the statements, but the fact Naruto was willing to defend her honor meant something. Sasuke, however, disagreed with the plan. No, we should avoid the Iwa teams. Naruto clenched his fist. What? Why? We want Iwa teams to pass on to the third round. Iwa won't have any jonin or delegates observing the finals if they don't have any of their shinobi in it. Instead, we should focus on thinning out Kumo genin and clear the path for Iwa. Sakura agreed. Sasuke is right, we can always deal with the Iwa shinobi later. Naruto gave in. All right, I'll send my clones out to take down the other villages' teams. We'll just go straight up with one set of clones triggering any traps. When they go down, I'll just make more. When the signal flared overhead to begin, Naruto made 30 clones and had 10 put up a henge to look like Sakura and the next 10 like Sasuke. He sent groups straight up the mountain and to the right and the left. Early on, the going was fairly simple. There were some rather obvious traps that the clones would take the time to destroy so the real Naruto and team wouldn't get caught in them, even though they really shouldn't considering how obvious they were. Parts of the mountain were not easy to hike up unless one had successfully learned the water walking exercise. The mountain was damp and slick, so it wasn't quite as easy as walking on trees, but for someone who had mastered water walking it was child's play. Naruto clones engaged the first group of genin from Kumo and knocked them all out with ease. The pure speed in which the Naruto clones moved made it impossible for the genin to put up any real defense. Another set of clones ran across Iwa genin and ended up retreating from them to the sound of taunts and cries of cowards. The real Team 7 had an easy way up the mountain as the clones dealt with other teams on either side of them. The traps did become a little more lethal. Sakura wished she was nearby when on particular trap was triggered. The Fuinjutsu trap was triggered by mere proximity, and all that it did was send a pulse of chakra down the mountain. To a civilian the trap would have done nothing. However, to shinobi who were clinging to the mountainous face with their chakra it instantly dislodged them. One of the clones had dissipated when it quickly used some ninja wire and a kunai to control its fall. Despite landing on its feet, the force made it pop into smoke. Naruto explained the nature of the trap to his team. Sakura was deeply curious on what kind of sealing matrix they had used and would be asking the Hokage the next time she saw him. Naruto took the time to create another 30 clones and had them scatter in all directions. Team 7 was making great time when a pair of his clones popped, which surprised Naruto. The clones had fought a pair of Kumo teams who were working together. The clones had successfully knocked a few out but were then hit with a Suiten and Raiten combination attack that they were caught in the edges on. It would have only caused minor wounds on the real Naruto, but since they were just shadow clones they dissipated. The real Naruto received the memories and smiled. Looks like not all of the competition are completely hopeless. We'll see. Team 7 at this point was ahead of everyone else and continued on even in the dark. The traps got a little worse as they incorporated genjutsu as well, but it was nothing Team 7 couldn't handle. The final trap was actually an avalanche that caused tons of snow to begin racing down the mountain. Team 7 had a couple of options and elected to go with the brute force approach. Naruto made a dozen clones and they began with Futon, Daytopper, Wind Release, Great Breakthrough. A dozen Gale Force Wind Jutsu slammed into the descending snow. Snow was smashed away with tremendous force, however more snow came down over it, still heading for Team 7's position. The real Naruto sent another Futon, Daytopper, Wind Release, Great Breakthrough, that was combined with Kaiten, Gokakyu no Jutsu, Fire Release, Great Fireball Technique, from Sasuke that create a firestorm that melted a huge swathe of snow. All Team 7 had to suffer through was a wave of lukewarm water. I bet that was the last one, Naruto said. Let's go up and beat the record. Team 7 raced to the top and did in fact beat the record. It had not taken them 2 days, it hadn't even taken them a full 24 hours. The proctor congratulated them and let them know they had to wait until the next 7 teams arrived. The 3 genin reviewed the information Naruto had gathered from his clones. Sasuke asked, any teams that could be a threat? Naruto shook his head and yawned, not really. The frost nin that we met seemed to do really well in the snow, I'm betting they have a good Suiten user, but other than that the competition was a bit light. Sakura asked, were you able to observe all the teams? Naruto shook his head, no sir, I guess there might be some surprises. Kakashi-sensei is right to be cautious, but as far as I can tell we'll be facing true genin. Team 7 settled in and waited for the next teams to arrive. Team 7 watched as the other teams made it through. The second team through was a Kumo squad. They were surprised to see the Konoha team waiting for them. No words were exchanged and they both waited on the next teams. The next team was from Iwa. Spotting the Konoha team they stalked toward them, angry that the Leaf Shinobi had gotten there first. We looked for you out there, but I guess you were too scared to fight. Naruto simply shrugged, there is always next round, let's save it for when we have an audience. The Iwa team grimaced but didn't start anything more. The next team to arrive was Yakuta's team from Shimogakur village hidden in frost. Team 7 shared a friendly greeting and then had to wait for several more hours before the next teams arrived. The last 4 teams arrived one after another in quick succession. First another Iwa team, then a Kumo team, then one from Moegakur village hidden in the haze, and a final team from Iwa. Naruto shared a look with Sasuke, the plan had worked. 3 teams from Awagakur had made it into the finals. The proctor arrived and explained that they would have 1 month to prepare for the final exams. The final exam would be a series of one-on-one combats fought by the teams. The team that was the latest to arrive would select their first champion and then the opposing team would then select their fighter. They will fight until one side wins and then the next match will begin. The losing team must pick their champion first and then the winning team can keep the same champion or replace it. Once a team has lost all of their team in this manner, they will lose and their opposing team will move on to semi-final match. This will be a test of your individual skill but also of your teamwork and planning. Not every shinobi is best suited for every situation. The brackets will be decided now by random drawing, so you are allowed to research your opposing team and determine who would be best to fight against. Team 7 was rather blasé about the whole thing but paid attention to who they would be fighting. There were 2 Kumo teams, 3 Iwa teams, their own team and then a team from Haze and Frost. Their first matchup turned out to be against the team from Moegakur. 2 of the Iwa teams would face off against the 2 Kumo teams and the last Iwa team would go against Yakuta's team. Naruto wondered if it had been truly random. An angry Iwa genin demanded that they switch places with the team from Moegakur. The proctor shut him up quickly, much to Naruto's amusement. The proctor instructed him that there was to be no fighting prior to the match and that all teams would be watched. With those final instructions in place, the genin were released. The Jonin sensei from each team was waiting there for them. Kakashi gave them a nice smile. I hear you broke the record, good work you 3. Sakura asked, so what are we going to do here for a month? Kakashi gave her a nice smile. Train, of course. Sasuke wondered exactly how they were going to train when they would always have eyes on them. The plan didn't call for their abilities to be discovered this quickly. Sasuke didn't say anything because he figured Kakashi had a plan. Kakashi actually didn't have any sneaky plan that would take them away from the prying eyes of the Kumo spies. Instead, he was just going to focus his team on taijutsu. The weight seals could be detected but not how much was being used. While he knew his team would be disappointed in not being able to focus their energies on their other specialties, it never hurt to improve strength, speed and stamina. The Raikage reviewed the reports on Kakashi's team. In the room with him were Darui and Mabui. The Raikage finally spoke. Have they done anything suspicious at all? Darui shook his head. No, Raikage-sama, all they have done is train in taijutsu. Mabui read through another report. Naruto is listed as a B-rank shinobi in Iwa's bingo book. He is quite skilled with Kage Bunshin and we can confirm that based on their performance in the second exam. The leader of Kumo scowled. He must have incredible chakra reserves to be able to create so many. Is it possible he is the QB Jinchuriki? Mabui looked thoughtful. Maybe, but I can't see them using Suna and Sound's tactic against us. And it would be awfully risky to bring their Jinchuriki here in such a vulnerable venue. The Raikage looked thoughtful and rumbled, he bears the last name Uzumaki and we know Kushina Uzumaki was the previous host for the Kyuubi. Darui considered it and shrugged, there isn't enough information to say one way or the other. It's possible but the Uzumaki were also known for their stamina and chakra reserves. The Raikage slammed his fist on the table. Then why are they here? Why send Sharingan no Kakashi with his Genin team to our exam? They are vulnerable and exposed, why would they put the last Uchiha and Kakashi at risk like this? The white-haired Kunoichi offered, perhaps they are looking to bolster their standing. Even with the destruction of Awagakur, some may think Konoha is weak after the joint invasion. By bringing a strong Genin team here that includes the last Uchiha, they could be trying to reaffirm their strength across the elemental nations. There is something more going on, I can feel it. Double the number of shinobi watching Team 7. Inform me immediately if they do anything suspicious. Darui bowed and left to attend to his orders. Break. The first day of the Chunin finals was the day Naruto Namikaze would be revealed to the world. The minimum number of matches in the team battles was 3, meaning best case scenario there would be 12 matches. Worst case scenario there could be 5 possible matches, which would mean 20 matches during the day. Due to the potential number of bouts, Kumo had their final exams spread through 2 separate days. Naruto was very nervous as he put on his new clothing. The black and burnt orange jumpsuit had similar locations for pockets as his normal outfit did. The haori felt odd on him, but looking in the mirror he did think it looked nice. I hope I am making you proud by doing this, Dad. Sakura came down and looked at her teammate. Wow, Naruto, you look great. Naruto smiled, he liked it when Sakura complimented him. His nerves steadied a bit. Kakashi looked at his student and felt a sense of fierce pride well up in him. Minato-sensei, I've done the best I can as his Jonin instructor. I hope it was enough. Out loud he said, all right Naruto, put on a henge until we get to the exam location. Naruto nodded and performed the henge to look like he normally did. Team 7 headed out to the arena. Kumo actually had a pretty impressive arena designed. It was centered in a shallow valley that was surrounded by buildings. The buildings were enclosed so the feudal lords, rich merchants and other important officials could watch in comfort. The constructed walls of the arena had fuinjutsu seals lining them of a simple variety but were effective barriers to stop all but the most destructive jutsu. Sakura found the design relatively simplistic and chakra inefficient, but it would certainly do its job. There was outdoor seating as well that shinobi and less well-to-do citizens of Kumo were using to watch the match. All 24 genin were led into the arena where the Raikage gave a speech about the purpose of the Chunin exams. It wasn't exactly the same as the version Konoha used, but it was similar enough that it made Naruto think they originated from one source. At the end of the speech they announced the names and the villages where they had come from. The crowd was quite diverse. A large continent from Iwa had arrived since they had 3 whole teams. It was something of a rarity for a visiting village to have the most teams in the finals of a Chunin exam. Kitsuki had come in place of his father the Tsuchikage. Onoki did not like traveling due to his back issues. The powerful Doton user watched with pride as the genin of his village were announced. Dignitaries from Haze and Frost were also in attendance, and of course the nobles of the Land of Lighting were out in force. The crowd at the moment was in a generous mood and even applauded politely for the Konoha team. That was until Naruto Uzumaki was announced, and Naruto spoke up in a clear voice free of all nervousness and doubt. Actually, it is not Uzumaki, while my mother was Kushina Uzumaki. That is not my clan name. This sparked some interest and some quiet murmuring among the crowd. Many thought Naruto might be a Yamanaka due to his blonde hair. Naruto released the henge he was under, revealing his new outfit, complete with the haori with kanji of Naruto Namikaze written upon it. I wish to compete under my true name, Naruto Namikaze. Talk ceased in an instant. An eerie quiet fell upon the arena and the crowd. A pregnant silence gave birth to an explosive roar. Some loudly proclaimed the disbelief. Others made vows to kill the last Namikaze. He looks just like Konoha's Yellow Flash. He has to be that devil's child. I'll kill him. I'll kill his whole team. He's lying. We would have known if the Yondaime Hokage had children. Kill him. Does he know that jutsu? It makes sense, his sensei was Minato's student. Die yellow demon spawn. The last one amused Naruto to no end. They have no idea I hold the Kyuubi within me and I'm still being called a demon. The only change in his expression was a small smile that enraged the Iwa contingent. One foolish genin even threw a kunai straight at Naruto. Naruto's hand blurred as he snatched the kunai out of the air and hid it up his sleeve, making it seem to most of the genin and all of the civilians that he had just made it disappear. The Raikage roared, "Silence. There will be no fighting except done during the exams." The Raikage's echoing silenced the arena and cowed the Iwa genin into compliance. Kitsuki quickly began writing in a scroll and handed it to one of his subordinates. "Send this to my father by Hawk now. The Yellow Flash has a son. Why did they reveal him here of all places? All of Awagakur will demand his blood." With order restored, the proctor called out the first match. It would be an Awagakur team versus one of the teams from Kumo. Naruto walked with his head held high, almost regal in appearance. He and Kakashi had talked about how he should portray himself in Kumogakur once his mask was dropped. He was not to indulge in his usual mannerisms, he wasn't to get into any verbal altercations. Instead he was to appear calm, cool and collected. A stable rock that would infuriate the Iwa shinobi. Half of the eyes in the arena were upon Team 7 instead of the actual match itself. Naruto felt a bit bad about that because the matches were rather interesting. The Kumo team was proving the adage that a shinobi out of control was a shinobi who had already lost. The blood of the Iwa genins was up and they were making foolish mistakes in their anger that their opponents were taking full advantage of. Soon enough Kumo had won the fight in a clean sweep. Next up was Team 7. The three genin moved to the waiting area, which was in view of most of the crowd. As the team that had scaled the mountain the fastest, the other team had to select the genin who would fight in the first round before they did. The Moegaku shinobi who entered into the arena fighting area was a couple of years older than Team 7. He was tall and had a large number of kunai covering his vest and belt. Sakura was the selection made for Team 7 and she jumped into the arena with a relaxed smile on her face. Sasuke turned to Naruto. "This is going to be boring, up for a game of shogi." Naruto paused and pretended to consider for a moment before finally nodding. Meanwhile the crowd began to mutter angrily. The disrespect from the team was outrageous. Did they think so little of their opponents that they were just going to play a game while the match took place? One angry shinobi remarked, "Even if they don't think much of the other team, they should at least watch their teammate." The angry murmurs and occasional shouts didn't deter the two young genin. They began one of their rehearsed games seemingly without a care in the world. In the ring Sakura's opponent gave her an evil leer. "I drew the short straw. My team thought you would start with Namikaze. The boy has us nervous, but instead it's my lucky day and I get to gut you." Sakura politely bowed in the face of the insult. She entered into a relaxed academy stance and the proctor signaled the fight to begin. The large genin charged forward, throwing kunai with relatively impressive speed for a genin. Sakura deflected them all with her bare hands smoothly. The genin had a kunai in both fists and windmilled his arms rapidly, stabbing downward with the kunai. Sakura sidestepped and lashed out with a powerful kick that snapped the genin's knee. He howled in pain but had the presence of mind to keep himself focused on his task. He threw the kunai at near point blank range at Sakura, who slid around them like it was a dance. On one knee the teenager threw kunai after kunai with as much speed as he could. Sakura continued her graceful motion, avoiding each and every one of the thrown projectiles. The genin was out of kunai. In a rage he channeled his chakra into his good leg and pushed himself upward toward Sakura. As he got near he flashed through hand signs and began to use a jutsu, but before he was able to, Sakura had charged unexpectedly and delivered a vicious high kick to his stomach, causing him to cough blood and interrupted his attack. While her opponent was still falling to the ground, Sakura lashed out with a strike to the back of the neck, knocking the outmatched genin unconscious. The arena looked at Sakura with newfound respect. Many had thought a pink-haired kunoichi would be a joke. It turned out that she was frighteningly proficient in taijutsu. Some of the shinobi in the crowd wondered if the girl was one of the bodyguards of such an important figure as Yellow Flash's son. The shogi game continued on as the next round of the battle would take place. Because Sakura won, she returned to the staging area and the team from Moegaku had to select the next fighter. In the Kumo exams, winning was awarded and strength built up on strength. The next genin took to the field. She was a kunoichi with short cropped hair in a black body suit. The crowd waited anxiously for who Konoha would pick for the match. Some of the crowd were anxious to see the Namikaze while others were curious about the last Uchiha. Instead, Sakura went back into the arena while Naruto and Sasuke continued their shogi match. Sakura gave a bow to her opponent and once again stepped into her ready stance. The enemy kunoichi immediately began a genjutsu when the round started. Sakura didn't even need to flush the foreign chakra out of her system, she simply parsed it away from her senses. The kunoichi thought her opponent was under it and quickly threw a pair of senbon coated with poison. The senbon struck home only for Sakura to be replaced with one of the kunai used in the prior match. The Hazenin gasped in surprise and turned to look where Sakura had gone to. She received a vicious barrage of punches to the midsection that knocked the wind about her. Sakura followed it up with a leg sweep and then pounced on the downed genin, kunai held at her throat. Do you yield? The kunoichi hastily yielded and just like that the second match was over. Sakura walked back to where her teammates were now moving on to the middle game. Sasuke glanced at his teammate, we'll need to leave this area once you finish the third one off. I think I've finally got an advantage for once. Try to take your time please. Sakura resisted the urge to laugh and instead just said, hi. The Raikage saw the two genin playing the game but could not make out what was going on in the board. It looks like we won't get to see Minato's son in action today. Darui shook his head, no Lord Raikage. The right hand of the Raikage looked down and asked, what are we going to do about Namikaze? The leader of Kumo pursed his lips and then answered, nothing for now. This is part of some plot by Konoha but it doesn't make sense yet. I wonder if that snake Danzo is behind this. Darui looked a bit surprised and asked, I'm not sure I follow. The Raikage looked at his aide and explained. Danzo has desired to be the Hokage. It may even be plausible that he helped arrange the assassination of Hiruzen. If the son of the Yellow Flash were to die in a foreign country, killed by his enemies, he could discredit Jiraiya and take him down. Darui considered the possibility but remained silent. The Raikage added, I could be wrong. It is just a thought but whatever is going on I know this wasn't done a whim. The Raikage and his aides turned back to watch the probable final match. For a third time Sakura entered the arena. Her final opponent was a shinobi who looked around her age. On his back he had two cylinder containers and tubes could be seen underneath his dark clothing. His face was bare to the world and he looked upset about the apparent ease it took to defeat his teammates. I will not go down so easy. Sakura bowed and readied herself. The Hazenin sprang forward once he was within 3 paces from Sakura. He extended his arms and a jet of superheated gas pushed out from his arms. Sakura leapt backward avoiding the heat. Her opponent gave chase and this time Sakura used Kawarimi to get behind him about 20 feet away and threw a pair of kunai at the gas tanks on his back. The genin dodged to the side and whirled back toward Sakura. She backed away from the boy, allowing Naruto and Sasuke time to finish the intense shogi match. The Hazenin pumped out more and more gas, desperately trying to tag her with it, but Sakura was too quick on her feet to get caught. Finally the boy's gas tanks were empty. Sakura waited for the boy's next move. He flashed through familiar hand seals, those of the first Kaiten Jutsu Sakura learned. Sakura realized in an instant that the gas was still in the air, it had dispersed some but she was willing to bet that it was flammable. Sakura put on a burst of speed and as her opponent made the final hand sign she flashed behind him. The fireball ignited the gas on where she just was, creating a spectacular firestorm. Sakura lashed out with a bone-snapping kick to her opponent's back and knocked him into the still-burning air. He cried out in agony for a brief second and then the last vestiges of gas that still lingered in the tubing ignited, turning him into a miniature fireball. Sakura frowned a bit. She hadn't meant to kill him. She didn't feel particularly bad about it, however. His attack was definitely going to kill her if she hadn't moved. Sakura walked back to the waiting area where Naruto had taken the advantage in the game. The game wasn't done but Naruto had just pulled off a seemingly brilliant move. Sasuke grunted, I was going to lose in the next 15 moves anyway, let's go. Naruto rose gracefully and walked back to the viewing area so the next team could fight. The next match was the second Iwa team against the second Kumo team. This time the Iwa team did much better. The first round went to an Iwa Doton user who easily defeated his opponent. The next match his teammate lost but they put the Doton user again for the next 2 and they took the match. Their teammate was moderately wounded but could be patched up to fight the next day. The Raikage saw Daru's eyes widen a fraction as he received a report from a Chunin. The Raikage looked questioning over at his right-hand shinobi. The shinobi assigned to tail Kakashi's team were watching the game and wrote down the moves. They had it examined by a shogi master. The game was near flawless. The Reikage had a thoughtful look on his face. Being skilled at shogi was considered a sign of one's genius in strategic planning. The idea that two young genin were masters of the art was astonishing. Intelligence reports that the Uchiha boy is a genius. Those same reports pegged Naruto as the dead last in class. It was an obvious cover, but the idea of genius like this striking twice in one generation is troubling. How does Konoha keep developing shinobi like Minato, Kakashi, the Sannin, Itachi and now these three? His musings were interrupted by the start of the team from Frost fighting off against the final Iwa team. As much as the genin deserved to be watched, it was hard for the Reikage as well as the rest of the spectators to stop thinking about the powerful team from Konoha. The final team match of the day was coming up. The team from Shimogakull would face the third Iwa team. The winner of the match would be the one to face the team from Konoha. Team 7 was ready to begin their humiliation of Iwa, so they were actually rooting for the Iwa team to win. If it wasn't for their mission, they would have supported the team from Frost simply because they were one of the few teams not to try to harass them. Despite a valiant effort by the Frost team, they were outmatched by the team from Iwa. The environment did not suit a Suiten user, and Doton was the natural counter to Suiten. Still, the Frost team managed to force one Iwa member to concede. It was a respectable showing and would probably be enough to have at least one of them promoted to Chunin. It was a rarity in the first place to have minor villages make it to the third part of the exam. Yakuta collected her genin and brushed past Kakashi. Good luck, Kakashi-san, I'm going to be leaving now before the fireworks begin. Kakashi gave her an eye smile. Your loss, you are going to miss a great show. Yakuta walked away and Kakashi listened into the proctor announcing the next matches. It would be Konoha against Iwa and the second Iwa team against the last Kumo team. Immediately after those two matches, the last battle will take place. Kakashi's team nonchalantly strolled back to their home away from home while half a dozen Kumo shinobi escorted them to avoid any battle in the street. That night, thousands of messages were sent across the elemental nations. Spies of all the nations sent word, of course, some through jutsu, others through bird, and others pushed themselves to travel in person. This was momentous news. Outside of another village being invaded, there was nothing that could top this kind of information. That very night, news arrived in Awagakur. The Tsuchikage immediately called for his advisors despite the late hour. His bleary-eyed granddaughter had been attending the discussions ever since she began pining after the old man's job, so despite her tiredness she was also present. Onoki threw the letter on the table and said, "The yellow flash had a son and no one knew of this. How could you be so incompetent? Forgive us, Tsuchikage-sama. No one knew and Namikaze still lived." Onoki resisted the urge to scatter his spy master's particles to the wind. One of the clan leaders spoke up, "Failure aside, we must act now. The brazen arrogance of the demon spawn must be answered. This is an outright provocation." Onoki considered the facts. Konoha had deliberately provoked them. They had to know that they would try to kill the son of their most hated enemy. So why put him at risk this way? They could be trying to assassinate my son. Kitsuki is one of our most powerful jonin. Is Konoha trying to lure him into a trap to murder him? Onoki had been silent, so another clan leader started to speak. Onoki shut him up quickly. "I'm thinking, quiet. They must think they can kill him. Kakashi is a deadly assassin, but my son is also quite powerful and he will have several jonin with him. Do they have additional forces lying in wait?" The silence stretched on. "I know this is a trap. Konoha would never risk the greatest hero's offspring without good cause. But even if I could tolerate his existence in this world, I would have hundreds of shinobi abandoning their post attempting to hunt him down. Even knowing it's a trap, I must fall for it." Onoki was the oldest Kage living. He was feared for his dust release but also for his vast experience on the battlefield. "They want to murder my son. They want to kill my jonin. If I can't avoid the trap, I must make them choke on their morsel. In the next 2 hours I want 100 shinobi squads ready to march. All must be at least chunin in rank. Send word to my son that after the chunin exams he is to delay the Konoha team but don't fully engage." 100 squads meant 400 shinobi. While the shinobi forces of each village numbered in the thousands, a large chunk of the shinobi arsenal were not designed for direct combat. There was a large group of genin, many whom took on non-combat roles within the village. There were also specialists who worked in interrogation that never left the village. There were others who taught potential shinobi. Some served as medical specialists and others were scholars attempting to record jutsu and even create new ones. Even in times of war outside of the most catastrophic occurrence, a shinobi village was loath to send any more than half of their combat specialists away from the home they were sworn to protect. 400 shinobi, most of whom would be combat specialists, was an army. It could realistically destroy any of the minor villages with ease. Surely the boy isn't that dangerous, one of the advisors argued. It's an obvious trap. They want us to send Kitsuki in and then their additional forces will attack. Instead we will spring the trap on them, the Tsuchikage declared. Everyone at the table was silent and they bowed to the will of the absolute ruler of Awagakur. And Han is going with them. ****** Team 7 had celebrated the successful completion of the first part of their mission. They knew Kumo was watching closer than ever, so they had remained mum about the next stage. In the morning they were escorted to the arena by a large block of Kumo shinobi. Sasuke smirked at them while the rest of Team 7 just fell in line. When they arrived at the arena they realized that more seats had been hastily constructed. The arena as it had been built would not have been able to handle the influx of observers. It seemed like all of Kumo had turned out for the Chunin exams and Team 7 knew they were the reason. More specifically, Naruto Namikaze was the reason. Their match would be against one of the two remaining Iwa teams. This time it would be Sasuke's turn to defeat their three opponents. The other team, however, had to make the selection first. The tall leader of the team shouted out, "Are you going to cower behind a woman, Namikaze? Come out and fight me." Naruto calmly ignored the taunt. Sasuke stepped into the arena. "If you want to get to him you have to go through me." The Iwa shinobi glared with hatred at the Uchiha. He then stepped into the arena. "Fine, you get to die first." Sasuke didn't even bother to get into a fighting stance, he just kept his hands loose at his side. The match began and the Iwa shinobi started off with Doton, Dosekiru Earth Style, Earth Dragon. The jutsu was a dangerous one and a bit surprising for a genin to know. However, Sasuke had the Sharingan and had already encountered this particular jutsu. He knew how it would behave and knew exactly how long it would take for his opponent to finish the hand signs. Sasuke's hand blurred and he threw a pair of shuriken. The Iwa nin had just finished the jutsu as the shuriken pierced his throat. The Earth Dragon rose with a roar only to end abruptly as the chakra used to form it suddenly ceased to be. Pathetic, he was so focused on his jutsu he didn't even notice the shuriken coming in until they were almost there. The Iwa spectators screamed out their rage. The Iwa genin who were up next against Sasuke were angry, but they were also scared. The tall genin was the best ninjutsu user on the team and he was killed within the opening seconds of a fight. Sasuke smirked at them, scared. That of course got their blood boiling as they denied it. The proctor told Sasuke, "You may return to the waiting area while the Awagakur team selects the next participant." Sasuke responded, "Regardless of who they pick, I'm fighting, so I'll stay right here." The proctor shrugged and Sasuke's next opponent stepped into the arena. The teenager was a kenjutsu specialist and had two katanas held in his hands. "I won't be caught off guard, Uchiha." Sasuke said nothing and the match began. The kenjutsu specialist charged into close combat, blades striking out with some skill. Sasuke considered his options and launched a kaiten, Gokakyu no Jutsu, fire release, great fireball technique. Of course the shinobi dodged the attack, but in the instant where his vision was blocked by the fiery jutsu, Sasuke sent shuriken whirling toward where the Iwa nin had dodged to. At the last moment Sasuke's opponent deflected the shuriken with his blades. Sasuke smirked, "Not bad, if you weren't up against me you'd probably be promoted to Chunin." Kakashi had allowed Sasuke some leeway in taunting, but he feared the boy reveled in it a bit too much. The rock nin charged in again and this time Sasuke sped toward him. Sasuke dodged the first blade and then parried the second with his kunai. Using his superior strength he forced the blade away from his opponent's body and then brought down the kunai into the genin's chest. The genin gave a cry of pain and dropped his blade. Sasuke twisted the kunai and ripped it out, allowing the blade to pass sideways through his opponent's torso. The dead genin gurgled, shuddered once and then lay still. The Raikage saw the two quick battles and the boy's evident skill. And the boy has yet to unlock his Sharingan. When he does he will be a force to be reckoned with. Darui looked up at his leader. "Our sensor shinobi believe he has unlocked the Sharingan and is using it during the battle." He must have some sort of covering over his eyes. The Raikage acknowledged his subordinate's words and looked on as the last Iwa shinobi entered the arena. Sasuke's last opponent entered into the arena. He had on winter clothing, heavily furred and bulky. Sasuke's Sharingan saw the reason for it. The little fool is looking to go out in a blaze of glory for his village. The raven-haired genin had detected the dozen explosive tags under the heavy clothing. His opponent was going to try to get close and detonate himself. Sasuke used Cage Bunshin as soon as the match started. The Iwa opponent was now faced with two targets. One was hanging back while the second charged him. He would have to get past the clone before he could get near the real Sasuke. He shouted out, "Doton, Shinju Zanshu no Jutsu, Earth Style, Headhunter Jutsu." The genin popped up behind the real Sasuke and detonated all of the seals, taking Sasuke and himself out. His dying thoughts were that now his fellow Iwa team would have to deal with one less bodyguard before dealing with the Namikas. Of course the real Sasuke had been the one to charge, so the now dead genin never realized he had killed himself to destroy a shadow clone. Sasuke chuckled as he walked back to his team. He had killed all three of his opponents just like Kakashi had asked him to. The crowds may have been there for Naruto, but they would remember that the last loyal Uchiha had also fought today. The other semi-final match was Iwa against Kumo. Despite the Iwa team's focus and desire to face Team 7 in the finals, they lost one of their genin. He would live, but he would not be able to participate in the next match. The Iwa team had a skilled Doton user who was able to coat his entire body in rock that proved to be a formidable defense against the rest of the Cloud genin. It was a battered but triumphant Iwa team that made it to the finals. There was an intermission of 1 hour for the various nobles and important individuals to eat and make wagers on the outcome. After seeing Sakura and Sasuke in action, the betting was not so much who would win but on other things. Would the Namikas fight? Would he kill his opponents? How long would the bout take? After the hour of waiting, the two Iwa genin who were left knew they were at a disadvantage, but that was fine as long as they got to fight the son of Iwa's greatest enemy. Naruto was a bit surprised to see how much hate was reflected in their eyes. He knew the history on how Minato single-handedly turned an almost certain victory for Iwa in the war into a humiliating defeat. But this was a bit much. Hating me because my father beat them in a war they started is even stupider than hating me because Kyuubi was locked inside of me. He had his orders from Kakashi-sensei and he readied himself to carry him out. The genin who could encase his body with Iwa no Yoroi rock armor would be his opponent. Naruto entered into the arena and the crowd's roar reverberated throughout the valley. Some were cheering because the Namikas was finally going to fight. Others were yelling jeers and taunts. Eventually both types quieted down as the proctor refused to start the match until he could be heard over the crowd. The Iwa nin had no words for Naruto and Naruto had none for him. The proctor began the match and the Jinchuriki's opponent encased himself with rock armor. Naruto used Cage Bunshin to create half-dozen copies of himself. The Iwa shinobi charged in for close combat. The clone he attacked easily dodged the blow. In an instant 6 Naruto surrounded him and all of them shouted clearly, Rasengan. The swirling balls of condensed chakra then smashed into the Iwa genin. The rotating ball of pure chakra easily pulverized his rock armor. If he had just been hit by one, the force would have powered through some of his armor and then sent him flying away. He probably could have survived. However, since he was hit at multiple sides, he could not be thrown back. Instead, the Rasengans tore through the rock armor and into the soft flesh and bone beneath. Blood splattered the clones and 2 of them dissipated from bone shards that had ricocheted out of the dead genin's corpse. Once more Naruto had silenced the massive crowd. The Rasengan was further proof of Naruto's parentage. Naruto thought that was a bit silly because other people could use the Rasengan, but if it helped cement the image they were trying to convey, that was fine. The final Iwa genin stared daggers at Naruto and then raised his hand. I yield. His Jonin sensei and the rest of the Iwa contingent were furious. He barked back at him, I'm not a fool. If I try to fight him, he will kill me. I can serve my village better alive than dead. Kakashi eyed the genin and made a note to himself to watch for him in bingo books in the years to come. Or if they do bring him along when they attack us, I'll make sure he dies. Smart enemy shinobi need to be cut down before they grow into their strength. The proctor shouted, the Chunin exams are over. Your village leaders will decide who is deserving of a promotion. The proctor said a bit more about exiting the arena and advised the Kumo citizens that the Raikage will make the Chunin selections within the coming days. Kakashi smiled at his team. Let's celebrate tonight and leave in the morning. Team 7 could have left that day as there was still daylight, but they wanted to give Awagakur time. If Kakashi had a crystal ball that could see into Awagakur, he would have left immediately, but without that actionable intelligence they were sticking with the plan as designed. The Awagakur army made quick time as they raced to intercept their prey. Chunin and Jonin had been hastily assembled and were now determined to get to the Namikas before he returned to his own land. The leader of the group was Juro Suzumari of the Suzumari clan. He was an elite Jonin who had honed his clan's bloodline to a razor edge. The Suzumari clan had a bloodline that was Iwa's version of tracking clans like Inuzuka and Hyuga. As long as they touched the earth, they could feel the slightest vibrations from miles away. This made them almost impossible to ambush and allowed them to hunt down their targets easily. Even if the enemy jumped from tree to tree, they could feel the vibration of the contact the tree had with the earth. In made then excellent hunter Nin, and Juro was no exception. He had a long career of hunting down missing Nin. The only black mark on his record was the failure to catch the mad bomber, Deidre. And that had much to do with the S-ranked shinobi being able to create a flying construct. Hunting down and killing the last Namikas would more than erase that failure. Almost his entire clan had volunteered for the mission. However, as the Suzumari clan head, he had to think about the future and had only allowed half a dozen of its members to join in the hunt. Han the Jinchuriki of Kokuo was in the squad behind him. Juro was confident they could rely on Han in the coming battle. Despite being a Jinchuriki and having hate-filled eyes, Han was obedient to the will of the Tsuchikage and fought with cold precision. He was their trump card in case the Leaf had somehow hidden an army ready to spring an ambush. Juro didn't think this was likely unless Konoha had made an alliance with Kumo. If that happened, they were probably doomed anyway. That was highly improbable as the enmity between Kumo and Konoha had grown over the years. While Han was the most powerful individual, he was far from the only dangerous shinobi. Among the Jonin there were skilled Kuchiyos no Jutsu summoning technique specialists. And since Sharingan no Kakashi specializing in Raiten Jutsu, they had brought Iwa's most skilled futon specialist, Sanemi. She had no bloodline or clan affiliation. However, she was famous for her chakra control and skill with futon manipulation that allowed her alter existing wind jutsu on the fly. The Iwa shinobi had already sped through the lands near Takagakur. They had made only a slight detour to show the Takagakur forces they had no plans on invading. It wasn't so much of a fear of being defeated but more of being slowed down. On they raced and soon they entered into the newly re-established Ta no Kuni, land of rice fields. There they would rest and replenish their chakra and then continue on to their destination. The goal was to ambush them in the land of frost, but if necessary they could strike in the land of hot water. Under no circumstances could they allow their target to enter into Hai no Kuni, land of fire. In the morning Team 7 left Kumogakur. Their Kumo tails clung to them as they reached the gates of Kumo. There were 4 Iwa shinobi waiting for them. The 3 Jonin sensei of the Iwa teams and Kitsuki blocked Team 7's path. The Kumo shinobi tensed and prepared to deal with fighting within their village. Kakashi halted and asked in a mild voice, "What can I do for you, Kitsuki-san?" The son of the Tsuchikage waited a few seconds to answer before finally responding, "Do you want to prevent a war, Hitaki? Hokage-sama hates war, so please do go on." Kitsuki looked around and said, "Too many eyes here, let's go to the restaurant over there and discuss this over a meal like civilized people." So they are trying to stall. We've already stayed here an extra day, I'm not going to make it easy on them. You can discuss this with my shadow clone, but my team and I need to get moving. Kakashi made a single Kage Bunshin who gestured toward the restaurant. Kitsuki grimaced, "That is not possible. I will state my claim here and now then. Leave the Namikas with us or you and your squad will die." The 3 junior members of Team 7 didn't even blink. Kakashi gave Kitsuki an eye smile. "Oh really? I should leave my sensei's son with his most hated enemy. I should leave the child of the most celebrated hero of my village with you. I should leave my student with you. We are done here. If you want him, come and take him." A dozen Kumo shinobi descended around the opposing shinobi. The highest ranked one said, "There will be no fighting in our streets and there will be no fighting in Kaminari no Kuni, land of lighting. The Raikage will take it as a personal insult if battle occurs in the lands he has sworn to protect. Kakashi bowed, "Thank you for your timely arrival. My team will not attack, however we will defend ourselves if threatened. Perhaps if you were to entertain these fine individuals at the diner they had suggested, we'd be happy to be on our way without any further trouble." Kitsuki growled out, "I'm not hungry anymore and we are leaving now." The Cloud Shinobi ominously responded, "You have both been warned." They then all leapt away or used the Shunshin to remove themselves from the area. Both Iwa and Konoha Shinobi left Kumogakur proper at the same time. The Iwa Shinobi bristled with killing intent while the 4 Konoha Shinobi ignored them completely. Kakashi gave off an ease of bored indifference to the Iwa Shinobi who were next to them, but he kept a sharp eye on Kitsuki. The man's skill with Doton Jutsu made him a dangerous opponent. "My team is outwardly calm, but I know they are anxious to get started. When will you strike, I wonder? Will you take Kumo's warning seriously and wait to attack until we have left Lightning Country?" Kakashi saw advantages both situations, but for now the ball was in Iwa's court. Regardless of when they chose to strike, Team 7 would be ready. That will be it for this video. If you want more, comment down below, like, subscribe. And see you guys later.